Hello everyone, this is Coach Stecker. I had to make a notes video because I am not at school, but we need to take the final set of notes that goes in Unit 7. So if you don't already have your spiral notebook out, then go ahead and grab that for me. Once you have it, flip to your Unit 7 table of contents, and we'll go ahead and get started. So like I said, this is the final set of notes. This is 7-4. And we are factoring trinomials today. Factoring trinomials, and we're going to tape these down on page 56. So factoring trinomials, real quick before I show you the notes. Trinomials just means that there's 3 terms in the expression. This is what your set of notes look like. It's just a sheet of paper. You'll fold it down and tape it onto page 56. So go ahead and pause the video real quick and get that taken care of. And then when everybody's ready, go ahead and push play. Everybody should have that taped in now. So we are going to be talking about factoring trinomials. So again, this is the trinomial. This is the standard form of what it looks like. We'll have ax squared plus bx plus c. There's normally going to be numbers in those A, B, and C spots, but that's what they typically are going to look like. So let's start right there at the top. It says writing a polynomial as a product, that's multiplication, of 2 factors is called factoring. Factoring is undoing the FOIL or box method. So remember, these last couple of days I've been showing you how to multiply polynomials, and we did FOIL and the box method. So that way, so remember they look like this. So there's the FOIL method, and then the box method looked like that. Factoring is undoing that. That's all it is. So we're kind of working backwards. So I went ahead and I wrote down the steps to factoring. There are 5 of them. When we do this example down here, we're going to talk about what each one is and how to work through that. But before we get started, I want you to see this. These are the X puzzles. We have been doing these every Friday since the beginning of school to prepare for this exact lesson, because the X puzzle is actually the hardest part. And so once you can get past the X puzzle, you're in good shape. So right here, let's fill this part out, and then we'll go ahead and look at this example and talk through our steps. So it says the X puzzle. What 2 numbers multiply to get A times C? And remember, on our X puzzles, it's multiply to get the top. So I want you to add A times C right here at the top. Okay, so remember, it's multiply to get the top and add to get the bottom, which is going to be our B value. Now, I'm sure several of you are having the question on, wait, where did this A, C, and B come from? Remember, the trinomials look like this. This is the standard form. These numbers you'll pull from whatever the expression is. There's going to be numbers there, so you just take them and you multiply to get the top, add to get the bottom. All right, so let's take a look at example number 1 down here. It says, step number 1, check for a greatest common factor. If there is one, then take it out. A lot of times you're not going to experience that. Really and truthfully, the only time that you're going to have that situation, if the numbers are really, really big, then there's probably going to be a GCF. So when I look down here at my example, these numbers, your A number right here is an understood 1. So you have 1, 10, and 24. Those numbers aren't too big, and there is no GCF because there's a 1. There's never a GCF if it's 1. Number 2 is rewrite the middle term using the X puzzle. So here's where the X puzzle comes in. We are trying to break up this middle term right here. So I need to figure out my X puzzle. Remember, it's A times C in the top, so this is going to be 1 times 24, so 24 in the top. Your B value is that 10 right there, so 10 in the bottom. Now these X puzzles, they're not new. We need to find 2 numbers that multiply to give us 24 and add to give 10. The only thing that's different from the X puzzle that we just set up versus the ones I've been giving you, I've been giving you the top and bottom numbers. This is how you come up with it. It's A times C in the top, and then B, your B value goes in the bottom. So now when we think about 24, we got, and of course, if you need to, you can write it somewhere. I'm going to write on this piece of paper so I can move it. But for 24, you have 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, and 4 times 6. This is it for 24. So when you look at this list, there's only one that's going to add to give you 10. So we're going to use 4 and 6. 4 times 6. X puzzle's done. That's actually the hardest part of factoring. So once you get past that, remember the whole goal for that X puzzle was to rewrite the middle term. So here's what I'd like you to do, especially when we're first starting. I want you to draw little arrows away from this 10x, just like this, because we're splitting the 10x up. We are uncombining like terms is what's actually happening. So we're going to bring down our x squared, and then we're going to put these in the middle. So plus 4x, plus 6x, and then the plus 24. So the only thing I did, I'm going to give you a second to catch up. The only thing I did was take this 10x right here, and I uncombined like terms. I split it up with a 4x and a 6x. These numbers right here matter, and they come from the X puzzle. So you got to make sure that you complete that X puzzle to get what those numbers are supposed to be. Okay? Step number 3, it says group the first 2 terms together and the last 2 terms together with some parentheses. That's easy. So I'm going to look at what I've got right here. The first 2 terms, I'm going to put in a set of parentheses, and the last 2 terms in a set of parentheses. Notice that I left that plus sign out. I left it outside of the parentheses. So there was step 3. Step 4 is probably the second hardest step. If I had to like rate them with difficulty, this one's going to be the next hardest one. It says take the greatest common factors of both sets of parentheses. So once you get the hang of it, this one's going to be a breeze. You just got to see it done a couple times. So when we talk about the GCF, remember that stands for the greatest common factor. It's what they've got in common, okay? So normally, if I was at school doing this, I would have a little Post-it note and I would cover this one up. So that's what we're just going to use, this piece of paper that I was writing on. I need to take the greatest common factor, the GCF, of this first set of parentheses. So I'm going to ask myself, what do these 2 things have in common that I can take from both of them? Well, when I look at this is x squared, and that's 4x. So they both have an x, so I'm going to take the x away. When I say take it away, I'm saying we're going to take it out and set it on the outside of the parentheses. Well, now we have to talk about what's left. So if there were 2 x's right here to start with, and I took one of them out and set it on the outside, there's still one chilling there. And then this 4x right here, if I took this x and I set it on the outside, there's a 4 right there. So you have factored out the GCF, the greatest common factor. You do the same exact thing for this one. So now this one, the second one that you do, it's always going to be a number. So you're going to be able to take out a number. We need to figure out what the greatest number or greatest factor that these 2 have in common. I would say probably 85% of the time, it's going to be your smaller number. So here's just a quick little check. You need to ask yourself, does 6 go into 24? If your answer is yes, then 6, then that number right there is your greatest common factor. This plus sign, I'm going to also drop it down. So plus 6, I'm going to factor out a 6. So when you factor out, it's kind of like division. So we have a 6x. I took that 6 out, leaving that x right there. And then 24, if you take 24 and you split it into 6 groups, you factor it out into 6 groups, that means you are left with a 4. You can think about division as well. 24 divided by 6 gives you a 4 left. So we have officially factored out the GCF. Our final step here, and I also want you to know, it's kind of hard to tell, but I did write the GCFs in pink. Should have chose a better color that you could tell, but that is pink. So it says right here, step number 5, the final one, rewrite in factored form. You're going to group the GCFs together and then bring down the other set of parentheses. So this is the final step. It's just to rewrite it to show what it was in factored form. But before I do that, you should notice that these two are the same. They should always be the same. If they're not, then you've done something incorrectly. So make sure that these are the same before you rewrite it. So when you rewrite it, here's what it looks like. You're going to take the GCFs, the stuff that you took out of the parentheses that's on the outside, and you're just going to make a set of parentheses with them. This is called a factor. So x plus 6. The other one, you just drop the other one down. So it's x plus 4. And this is factored form. So I'm going to give you a second to catch up. And then I'm going to show you what we just did on this side right here. Okay. So now it says, check it out. Factoring is undoing the FOIL method. So as you can see, this is the same thing that we just got when we factored. So a way to check to see if you are correct, and you can always do this. It's a little time consuming, so I will not be doing this on every single one, but you can if you want to. We're going to distribute back. Watch what happens. I'm going to cover this up so that way we can't see it, because I want you to see it at the end. X times x is x squared. X times 4 is 4x. And then remember, we have to distribute with the 6, and we draw those on the bottom. I chose to do the FOIL method. You could also do the box method. 6 times x was 6x, and then 6 times 4 is 24. And then right here, you know, a few days ago, I would have said, hey, look, check these out. We've got some like terms right here. We need to combine them. And you would have said, yep, those combine to give you 10x. And then we would have been done. Looks beautiful. Factoring is undoing that. So I'm going to give you a couple seconds to catch up. And then I'm going to try to make the connection to what factoring actually is. So y'all check this out. Right here, we on this side, the factoring side, we started with this and we uncombined like terms. So we got to right here. Uncombining like terms is this step but backwards. So we took this and we split it up like this. And so notice that these two lines right here are the same. And then we, on the factoring side, you have to take out your GCF so that way you can form these two sets of parentheses up here. So factoring, it's just undoing the FOIL method. Now, here's the beautiful thing about factoring with the X puzzle. That's what we call it. It is the same exact process every single time, regardless of what those numbers look like. So I'm going to walk you through, I think, 2 more, and then I'm going to have the video pause so that way you can try 2 on your own. So let's take a look at number 1. And I will tell you this, guys, you need to give yourself some grace because it does take a couple of times for it to, finally sink in and for you to catch on. So give yourself some grace. This is brand new. But once you get the process down, you'll be set. So all it says, factor the following expression. We got our little trinomial here. The very first thing I'm going to do is my X puzzle. So let's draw an X puzzle over there. You need to do it kind of further to the right. And now remember, because this is brand new, it's A times C in the top, B in the bottom. Because now we're creating the entire X puzzle this time. So now look, on this trinomial, it's A, B, C. That's the numbers. So if I want A times C, I'm looking at 2 times 6, which is 12. Your B values, that's the one in the middle there. That's going to be a 7. So now I need 2 numbers that multiply to give me 12 and add to give me 7. Here's my factor chart. We have 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. I will say, those of you that are decent at multiplication, if you can do it without this factor chart, you do not have to write this factor chart down. Now, my people that kind of struggle sometimes to see it, this factor chart will help you tremendously. So make sure that you write it. The one I'm going to use here is this 3 and 4 because that one adds to give me a 7. So 3 times 4. Remember, it doesn't matter how you put them in there. Now remember, the whole goal of that X puzzle was to split this up. We're going to uncombine like terms. Now, again, it does not matter which one you put in there, but I do need you to pay attention to what numbers are already there. So, for example, let me write this out like this. We have a 2x squared and a plus 6. This 3 and 4 is going to go in the middle. You need to keep in mind that you are about to take a GCF. So if numbers pair better together, then put them together. So here's what's going on in my brain right now. I've got a 3 and a 4. In my brain, 4 goes better with 2 and 3 goes better with 6. That's just because they're multiples. So I'm going to choose to place them in there like that. You could also place them the other way. This is just a little bit easier because they're multiples. So there's the X puzzle. This was step number 2, technically. So we did the X puzzle, rewrote the middle terms. Now let's add your parentheses. That's what step 3 is. Your parentheses go in the same spot every time. So please do not overthink those. They just go in the same spot every time. There they are. Remember, leave that little plus sign out or whatever sign that is in the middle. Next up is GCF. So we're technically on step number 4. When I take the GCF, remember you are trying to take what they have in common out. So I'm going to cover this up to try to make it as simple as possible or as little for us to look at. We have 2x squared plus 4x. So when I look at these, both of them have an x, so I'm getting ready to take that x out. But 2 and 4, those are even numbers, so they also have a number in common. And I'm going to do my little trick. 2 goes into 4, so it's actually 2. So I can factor out a 2x right there. And then draw your parentheses. We got to write what's left in there. So if this one was 2x squared and I took the 2x out, there's 1x left in there in that first spot. And then here's another way that you can think about taking out a GCF. 2x times what will give you 4x back? Because right now we're trying to undistribute. So 2x times what gives me 4x? That'll be a 2. You could also do division. 4 divided by 2 gives you 2. There's a couple different ways you can think about factoring out that GCF. All right, on to this one. So I'm going to bring down my plus sign. And when I think about 3x and 6, those are both multiples of 3, so I can take out a 3. When I say multiples of 3, I'm talking 3 goes into both of these numbers evenly, like with no decimals. So again, 3x, I took the 3 out. There's an x still left. And then 3 goes into 6 2 times. There's my GCF step. We are going to practice a lot on this GCF step because when kids make it past this X puzzle, this is the next most challenging step. So we're going to do quite a bit of practice on this GCF step. Now remember, we're basically done. We just got to rewrite it to wrap it up. Before we do that though, you need to make sure that these two match. If they don't, you have done something incorrectly. So make sure these match. We're good to go. So my final factored form will be 2x plus 3 right here. And then my other set of parentheses is going to be the one that's being repeated right here, x plus 2. And here's factored form. I cannot stress enough, it is the same process over and over and over. So once you learn it, you will be good. And we're going to practice this for a couple days, so don't stress on me yet. All right, I had said I was going to do one more with you before I let you practice some on your own. I might do 2 because I just saw number 4. So we're going to look at that one too. Let's just do number 2 right here at the top, and then that'll be good because then I'll give you a few practice problems. So number 2, I tried to give you an ample amount of space to work this out. So, again, our steps are on the front. I'm just going to kind of talk through them. I'm not going to flip back and forth to show you what the steps are. The first one is to check for a GCF. There is not any number that I can take out of a 2, 3, and 5. Those are prime numbers, and so I can't really do anything with those. So I get to skip step 1. Step 2 is the X puzzle. So let's go ahead and get that set up. It's A times C in the top, B in the bottom. So my B value is that 3 there in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill that in on the bottom. A times C is going to be 2 times negative 5. So we're talking about a negative 10. Now we just got to figure out what the X puzzle is. So we're looking, here's my chart over here. Again, if you can do it without this factor chart, good for you. 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. So options, they're pretty limited on this one. Got to use 2 and 5. One of them's going to be negative. We have 2 and 5. And we're going to make this 2 negative because this is negative 2 plus 5, which gives me that positive 3. All right, so remember, these two numbers, the negative 2 and 5, are to rewrite this middle term. So I'm going to draw my little arrows down. My 2x squared and my minus 5, I'm just going to drop those down because I'm rewriting the middle terms, which means I'm going to take these and drop them in the middle. The uncombining like terms is what we're actually doing. Now remember, you are about to take a GCF, so pair them how you best see fit. For me personally, I'm going to put these 2's together and the 5's together because that just works better for me. So this is going to be a minus 2x because this was a negative 2. And then a plus 5x. Step number 3 is to add the parentheses to group them. Oh, my parentheses. That was a janky one. Just ignore that. Parentheses, and GCF, and then we're basically done. So, let me get my piece of paper here. GCF, what do they have in common, and what am I allowed to take out? This one's easy because the numbers match. It's lovely when that happens. We have 2x squared minus 2x. So obviously I can take out a 2 because both of them, they are a 2. So I'm going to take the 2 out. I'm also going to take an x out. So here's what this looks like. On the outside, we're going to have a 2x. Now let's talk about what's left on the inside. If this was a 2x squared and you took a 2x, there's an x still left in there. And then this is the one that we got to really chat about. How many times does 2x go into 2x? Once. It goes in there one time. And that was a minus, so we're going to bring that minus sign down and put a 1. You can also think multiplication as well. 2x times negative 1 is minus 2x. All right, and the other one here, I'm going to bring down that plus sign. 5x and 5, both of those are 5, so I'm going to take the 5 out. And then I'm going to be left. 5 from 5x leaves me a little x in there, and then 5 goes into 5 one time. And this is going to be a minus 1 because of this minus sign right here. Now, check to make sure that these match. If they do, you're good to go, and you just rewrite it. If they don't match, then double check your GCFs. So 2x plus 5, 2x plus 5, and then the other one is x minus 1. And there you go. All right. The final one that I'm going to walk you through, and then I'm going to have the video pause so that you can try some on your own, is number 4. I really wanted to talk about number 4 is because it looks a little bit sketchy right now. Here's what it is. We just have x squared minus 49. So one of these numbers here are missing. I do want to remind you that the normal standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. So we have the x squared part. That's great. So there's your a. This 49 is actually your c value because it doesn't have an x attached to it, which means the bx is missing. So here's what it says over here. If your b value is missing, then it is 0, and you can write that in. So if you absolutely need to see it, you could write plus 0x minus 49 if you needed to. You don't have to. That is for you. Some kids like to see that 0 because then when you make your little x puzzle like this, you're looking at, so remember the top is a times c, so 1 times negative 49, so that's negative 49. and then a 0 in the bottom. Some kids like to see that 0 in there so that way they know, like, hey, I need to put that in the bottom. Now, this little X puzzle right here, we need this number down here, these two numbers to add to give us 0. The only time that happens is when it's the exact same number. So what times itself will give you 49. Hopefully you guys practice squares in middle school. This is 7 times negative 7. Because 7 times 7 is 49. One of them has to be negative to get that negative 49, and then to add to be 0. It's actually pretty easy when it's 0 because you know it has to be the same number. All right, so now back over here. We have our X puzzle. Let's rewrite the 0x in the middle. We have x squared. I'm going to put my positive 7x first. I didn't really focus a whole lot on which 7, or I didn't talk about it because they're both 7s, and so it doesn't really impact me very much. So remember, we rewrote our middle term. That 0, it was 7x minus 7x. That cancels out, which is how you get that 0 when you're combining like terms. Add your parentheses. Take your GCF, and then you're done. So when we look at this, again, get a Post-it note if it helps you. We have x squared and 7x. The only thing they have in common is an x. So I want you to think about you took an x away from both of these, which means we have x plus 7 left on the inside. Scooch on over. On this one, you've got to drop that minus sign right there, so I'm going to drop it. And then 7x and 49. 7 is a factor of 49, so these 7 goes into 49, and so I'm going to take that 7 out. And I'm going to be left with x plus 7. Now, this one has to be a plus 7 because this is a negative 7 that you took out. And how you can think about it is negative 7 times positive 7 is negative 49. That's how I normally do it. Now we just rewrite it. Remember, you're going to take your GCFs, the stuff that you pulled out, x minus 7, and then drop down your other one. X plus 7. And there's factored form. So, as you guys are getting ready to try some of these on your own, I need you to kind of wrap your brain around, and I'm going to go back to the front here. Factoring is basically, it really boils down to the two major components are the X puzzle to rewrite your middle term, and then your GCF. So I need you, when you guys are practicing, obviously try to get past this X puzzle and then really focus on taking out the correct GCF because that's where I normally see the most struggle. So we're going to take some time and we're going to practice this. So I want you guys, we're just going to practice 3 of them. So I need you to get your pencil out so that way, or it should already be out. Grab your pencil and we're going to circle this. And then when I come back, we're going to talk about an extra one. I want you to circle number 3 from the actual notes part, the one that I left blank. And then the 2 practice problems up there at the top, 1 and 2. So again, 3 on this side and then 1 and 2 on the right hand side. I want you to take, these are probably going to take you about 4 minutes a piece right now because it's just brand spanking new. So let's do like 15 minutes. We'll give you 15 minutes to look at these 3, and then you can push play, and I'll show you what the correct answer is to make sure that you've got the correct one. So again, take 15 minutes, work on those 3, and then once the 15-minute timer's gone up, we'll check to make sure that we have the correct answer. See you in a minute. Alrighty, 15 minutes should be up. Hopefully you got through at least 2 of them. Maybe you were trying to finalize that 3rd one. I do want to make sure that you have the correct answers though. And I really want to kind of talk through my thought process on that final one. So here's number 3 in the actual notes, not those practice problems on the right. Right here, we had a 15 in the top, negative 8 in the bottom. So we had negative 3 and negative 5. you factor it out. There's factored form. And then sliding over here to the right, here are the two practice problems. So take a glance real quick because I do want to talk about that second one. The first one was very similar to the one over there on the left. You just had to make sure that you matched them up correctly or the best. Take out your GCF. There it is. Now on this last one, I wanted to make sure that I talked about this one. We have 3 and -10. That's what made this whole thing work. I chose to put 5 and 10 together because those are multiples of each other. And then that made 3 and 6 go together. So I actually put this in there opposite of what I listed in this exposal. But remember, that doesn't matter. Pair them together however you see is going to be the better option. Then I took out the GCF, and there's factored form. So I've got a practice sheet for you that I'd like you to do. We are going to take it up at the end of class, and so you do need to actually attempt it. Use your notes. It is an individual thing right now, so give it a go. Look at your notes if you need to, and then I will be back at school soon, and we are going to continue practicing this. So please do not stress and give yourself some grace. It is day 1 with factoring. I am very proud of you, though, for sticking through it, and as soon as you learn the process, you'll be good to go. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.